Good evening, Ken. Well, morning there, I suppose.
Good
It's
morning.
great. Yeah, it's great to finally have you on the show. I know we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of Ophora and, well, all things water. But before we dive in, no, actually, I need to rethink. That's a terrible pun. I'm sorry. Um, would you mind introducing yourself to us, and then we can obviously chat about all things Ophora and water?
Yeah, so my name is Ken Guoin. I've been in the water space as it relates to health and wellness, since I was a senior at the University of Michigan, and so pretty much all my life. And I'm an inventor. I actually have several different water patents. I filed my first patent way back when I was in college. It was for a chlorine-free swimming pool system, and it was the best system then, and it still is today. We still market and sell our organic pool systems all over the world. So I'm all about water: drinking, bathing, showering, swimming, and I love what I do. I have no retirement plans. We're here in Southern California near Santa Barbara, and we actually bottle water here. But what makes Ophora unique is we not only make and bottle water, but we also sell the systems that make the water. So, and that's important. That's important because no bottled water is sustainable. What you eventually want to do is be able to make your own water at home, and the technology exists today that you can do that, and you can create the same, basically the same water that we're marketing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is incredible. Just a bit more on your background. You said you sort of obviously you went to uni and you did a lot with water. What is your background technically? How did you sort of get into this idea of, I suppose, inventing products and especially within the space of water?
Well, actually, so interestingly enough, I grew up on the east side of Detroit, didn't have a lot of money. I knew if I ever wanted to go to college here in the States, if you enlist in the armed forces, you can get what they call the GI Bill, which ends up paying for all your college. So I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, did a 16-month stint there. And then came out and was able to attend the university. And University of Michigan is a big engineering school. I was not in engineering; I was in business. But some of my best friends were engineers, and I also, when I got out of the service and went to college, I still had to work. I had to generate income, and I actually saw an ad in the back of a magazine. For selling hot tub kits, the old redwood hot tub kits. And so I actually, so I went online and I called them, and they basically said, well, if you buy 3, you can be a dealer. So I bought 3 hot tubs, became a dealer, and built the first one. Before I could get it done, I sold it. Same in the second, the third. I started buying them by the truckload. Then boxcars. I was the largest. I ended up being the largest hot tub dealer in the United States, and it's funny because I ended up making so much money that I decided I don't even need to go to college anymore.
Fair.
But anyway, I did, and so we sold a lot of these hot tubs to doctors at the University of Michigan. The big joke was that the whole hospital smelled like chlorine every day because all these doctors were soaking. Anyway, they came to me and asked me, can you, this chlorine is nasty. It's not good for your skin. They knew all the dangers of chlorine, and chlorine is a poison. It was developed during World War I by Germany as a poison. So I just started doing a deep dive into how I could organically purify water. And together with my engineering buddies, I developed what I call the Trifecta. Again, it was the best system then. It still is today. And what that is, it's a combination of high output ozone. You've heard of ozone,
Yeah. O3.
UV sterilization. And then the key component, believe it or not, was using 34% food grade hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is a very powerful oxidizer, more powerful than chlorine, but the only byproduct of it is pure oxygen. So unlike chlorine, it's a known carcinogen. Uh, when you combine 34% food grade hydrogen peroxide with ozone and UV, I called it the trifecta. I patented it. It gives you incredible organic water to soak in. It was so pure that you could actually drink the water in hot tubs while you're sitting in it. And so I went from organically sanitizing pools and spas to creating a drinking water formula as well. And so it was hot tubs that actually got me into the whole water space.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've had a fascinating career. I like the bit where you talked about making lots of money. I'll definitely have to come to you for lessons there, I think. Anyway, yeah, back to Ophora, Ken. The name there, it's somewhat unique. How did you land on Ophora? Does it have any specific
my co-founder actually. So we needed a name that we could, trademark and use in the web, and we basically realized we got to create it. We got to create our own name, and she came up with Ophora, and O for oxygen, pH for pH balance,
Oh, nice.
and aura for gold, and that's how we came up with Ophora. And
Liquid gold.
yeah, and it's as you know, I think I did ship you a case of water, and yeah, okay, it's pretty special water. So we're all about Ophora is all about oxygen, and honestly, your best overall indicator of your health is what your oxygen saturation is, and it's really important because, as you may or may not know, most disease is hypoxic, and what that means, particularly like cancer. Cancer grows, thrives, and survives in a oxygenated, a non-oxygenated environment. So, and that's true of most disease. It's
where there's a low amount of oxidative phosphorylation as a result of low mitochondrial activity, where you have that sort of low oxygen environment, and that's
right.
those elevated levels of HIF1 alpha and all of that. Yeah, you're dead on, and thank you so much for that introduction. It just lends so much credence to what you're trying to achieve with the brand. Before we carry on with the story there, though, Ken, I'd love it if we could maybe take a bit of a step back and discuss maybe what makes Ophora special. Now, as you alluded to, you were kind enough to send through a case, and okay, well, the office got into it as well, but I was able to snag a few bottles before
Right.
the crowds went wild. But yeah, my initial impressions were that it's obviously a first class product. The unboxing experience was just awesome. It was packaged well. It really is a top tier product. Obviously, I'm a bit of a simpleton, so some of the marketing threw me a bit. And on the front of the bottle, just what the heck, let's pull it up there. It says Nano-Pure and Hyper-Oxygenated.
Right.
Now, yeah, I'd love to sort of dig through those one by one. But to start off with, maybe we could just sort of dig into what hyper-oxygenated water is, and then go from there. But yeah, what is hyper-oxygenated water? And
Well, so our water used to have a lot of oxygen in it. You could go to a fast moving river or stream, and that water would have 40, 50 parts per million of oxygen in it. In today's, and same with with tap water, you can measure tap water today. On a good day, there might be 2 to 5 parts per million. So, there's less oxygen. So right now, you and I are breathing about 21% oxygen. The rest of it's nitrogen and some other inert gases. And, where does oxygen come from? It comes, what you were probably taught in school, just like we all were, it comes from the plants and the trees. Well, actually 80% of the oxygen comes from the plant life in the oceans, and the other 20% from the rainforests. Those are both under attack. There's less oxygen, bioavailable oxygen in the planet. So, as you may or may not know, anything above 95% saturation, you've had your oxygen tested probably at various times in your life. So anything above 95% saturation means you're healthy. Anything below 95% saturation means you have significant health issues. And every point above 95 is significant. I'm 75 years old and I run at 99 to 100% all the time. And that's unheard of for somebody my age. That's a young athlete. So what does that mean? It means my chances of getting an autoimmune issue, cancer, just it really limits, it really amps up my health in terms of
your cellular health. Yeah, those rates are exceedingly low.
Yeah. So, and most people, and it's more than the fact there's less oxygen. People are moving less. There's less, they're not exercising properly. They're not eating clean. And it affects people's overall oxygen level. And that's one of the reasons there's so much illness in the world, is people tend to be low on oxygen. So we bottle this water at 40 parts per million. So it has a massive amount of oxygen in it. The other thing about this water is you could pour a glass of our water. The oxygen is actually, I have 4 patents on the water. And the water, the oxygen is actually stable and bound to the water. So you can pour a glass, set it on your nightstand, and in the morning it'll have the same amount of oxygen. It doesn't dissipate.
Yeah.
So
I've got a question on that I'd love to come back to later, but yes, please continue.
Yeah. So I drink a half a gallon to a gallon of water, of Ophora water every day. In fact, it's the only, I try and make it. I do like occasional wine or beer. So, but other than that, I'm drinking pretty much water.
That's perfect.
And, if you think about it, we're the only species on the planet, that drink other beverages besides water. I mean, lions don't get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, they're just drinking water. And it's true if you go back to the days of Christ. I mean, what else was there to drink? They were drinking water or wine, I guess.
I was about to say, I'm sure we could make have a discussion there about water being turned into wine, but aside from that, it was. Yeah.
So, I see these kids drinking Red Bull and all these energy drinks, and, there's some people, they don't even drink water. And, God forbid. I mean, it's just like water is how you flush the toxins out of your body. And so it matters. It matters the kind of water you're drinking as well. So when I talk about nano, there's two issues here. So nano purity.
Next question. Thank you.
Yeah. The purer the water. So water, as you may have heard, it's called the universal solvent. Mm-hmm. You've heard that probably, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what that means is water in its purest form will absorb anything it comes in contact with. It's called the universal solvent. So when you drink water, it's literally removing pollutants from your body. You're flushing toxins out of your body. And the purer the water, the better it does at that. So first we have to nano purify the water, and then we hyperoxygenate it. When we say hyperoxygenated it, normal tap water might have 2 to 5 parts per million. They're just, and when we test other oxygen waters, we test hydrogen waters, and there's no oxygen or hydrogen in them. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's a pretty expensive process to make this water.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But because of the nano purity, you're flushing toxins out of your body at the same time you're uploading all this pure oxygen, which is going to keep you healthy.
Yeah, definitely. So it's almost acting as a sort of a chelating compound in that respect. It's sort of creating a sort of a chemical differentiator that sort of allows the higher, not density, but the chemistry coming back into my head. It's helping move toxins at a high concentration to a low concentration, where the low concentration is in the water. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it's
Okay.
so very, very important. You know, we have America here in the States. We have the highest healthcare in the world, and we have the most unhealthy
Yeah.
population. And the reason, you know, a big part of it is people aren't drinking enough water, and they're not drinking enough the right kind of water. And these energy drinks and just all this garbage. I mean, it worries me with these kids. I mean, I was sitting out in front of a grade school not long ago. I'm watching these kids coming out of school, and they were all overweight. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, you know, I mean, when I was growing up, there's maybe like one fat kid in school. That was about it, you know. And now these kids are all overweight, and it's just, you know, they're drinking soda and just bad stuff, and it's creating a lot of health issues.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely is, and I think that speaks to a bigger sort of problem surrounding metabolic health in general. And I mean, people are obviously very quick to sort of point to the states, the United States, of course, as being the main instigator. But I don't think it's necessarily just a US problem anymore. I think it's global. I mean, you yeah, I mean, I'm from the UK. I grew up in South Africa, sort of traveled a bit, but yeah, you go to Australia, South Africa, the UK, the US. It's just a general, yeah, sort of dearth of health. There is metabolic disease everywhere. So yeah, I wouldn't throw the states completely under the bus in that
Yeah,
respect.
yeah. No,
Maybe,
it's a
yeah,
global issue.
yeah.
It's a global issue for
It
sure.
really is. Ken, you've mentioned this term Nano-Pure a few times now. What specifically does that mean, though? My apologies, maybe I've missed it, but what is this? What does Nano-Pure mean in terms of the process?
Well, it's basically taking the water down to nearly distilled quality water. It's like we live in today's world. The water is so denatured and devitalized that you need to literally start over, um, and that requires very robust filtration and mechanical filtration. We call it mechanical filtration, which is reverse osmosis. So
The gold standard, really.
it really is, and you know, there's issues with RO. It does produce wastewater, um, but in reality, it's the only way. The hardest thing to remove from the source water in today's world actually is the pharmaceuticals. Uh,
Yes, that's a good
and
point.
you have to start with RO, and even RO won't remove all of those. That's where we bring in high output ozone, low pressure UV, and a small residual of H2O2. You can mechanically filter out so much, but the other pollutants, particularly pharmaceuticals, you have to gas them off, and we gas them off with massive ozone, and ozone's really powerful, and that's how it works. It literally gases them off. And we live in so if you think about it, I mean, we live in a country, again, I don't want to pick on the States, but I think it's probably a global issue. But, you know, usually people my age, the pharmaceutical companies want to have you on 8 to 10 different pharmaceutical drugs. So, you know, and that's a mess because you start combining all these drugs and nobody knows what that does. And none of these pharmaceuticals were designed to be taken forever. It's like they got everybody in the States on statins, and now the word's coming out that they don't work, and people don't need them. So so pharmaceuticals are a big issue. That's the hardest thing to take out, and we have the solution for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'd love to chat a bit more, excuse me, a bit more about that in a minute. But yes, no, you are right. Opiates, endocrine disruptors,
yeah,
hormones, they are just a dime a dozen in our
yeah,
water supply, and you sort
yeah,
of just, and obviously they also contribute to the endocrine dysfunction, the metabolic dysfunction we were talking about earlier. Um, Ken, I know we're probably. I have a feeling we're on the same wavelength. If something comes up in the form of a tangent, we'll probably go down the rabbit hole forever. So
yeah,
I'd like to bring us back on track slightly and
yeah,
just
yeah.
talk about your purification process in a little more detail.
Okay, you did
Uh,
ask me that question. Okay,
yeah, no,
so
I did, but
yeah,
I
so
just mean, yeah,
we literally start with massive reverse osmosis, and
okay,
there's different types of RO, and what RO is, it's tightly, very tightly wound membrane that the water is forced through under pressure. So what happens is the clean water goes this way, and the pollutants go down the drain. So it ends up being pretty pure water. And then from there, we run it through, we pump it into a stainless steel tank, and we use a massive ozonator. So we have a 600-gallon treatment tank, and we use a 30,000-gallon ozonator that's designed for a 30,000-gallon pool. That's how big the ozonator is. And then when you combine ozonated water with UV sterilization, the combination of those two things end up gassing off the rest of the pollutants, which are primarily, like, again, the hardest thing to take out is the pharmaceuticals. It gasses those all off. And then so it's reverse osmosis, UV, and ozone. Really, that's the key. And then once you filter water to that level, you have to restructure it. And what Ophora does better than anybody is restructure the water. We add the minerals back in, potassium, um, a little bit of sodium. We add the
chloride, yeah,
mineral, yeah,
magnesium,
magnesium. We add the minerals back in, and we also we vortex the water. We run it through another round of UV, and we bring the water back to life. And that the restructuring is as important as the purification, and that the restructuring part component is what's mostly missing. Most of the people here in the States have reverse osmosis under their counters. The water is pure, but it's dead acidic water. I mean, once you remove everything from the water, it turns it into just dead
it's
acidic
lifeless,
water.
yeah.
Yeah. So, you have to bring the pH back up. We think the sweet spot on pH is between 8.0, 8.5. Some of these higher, 9, 10, we think that's a little too high. It does cause issues. So, but you got to bring that pH back up as well.
Just with regards to the filtering, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on carbon filtration? Do you think that serves any benefit? Is that part of your process, or do you just stick to reverse osmosis by default?
No, so, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, before the water goes through the RO, we use a lot of organic coconut carbon. So, good point. Thanks for bringing that up. So, yeah, here we're dealing with the first thing we have to pull out of the water is the chlorine. The chlorine will destroy the RO membrane. So the water firstly goes through a big tank of organic coconut carbon, and that chlorine is pretty simple to remove from the water, and carbon's the best way to do it. And these tanks that we use, they backwash. So yeah, so we pull all the chlorine out, and then at the end of the day, the filters backwash and remove those whatever's left and flush that down the drain as well. So no, you have to remove the sediment first, carbon, RO, ozone, UV, and a small residual of H2O2, and that's our secret sauce.
That's your secret
Yeah,
sauce. That's awesome.
all in the right. Um, uh,
order of
like,
operations.
yeah, because see, most people that use the biggest problem in the water improvement industry is everybody undersizes all the equipment.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the water just isn't very pure. I mean,
It drives me nuts. You see adverts for these sort of under the sink under the sink water filters, these shower
yeah,
filters, and the flow rate remains consistent. And I just think, well, okay, so how is the water? It's flowing through a few carbon filters, maybe a bunch of sand in the shower filters. How is that actually having any effect if the flow rate is not changing
right.
relative to
Yeah.
coming? Yeah, it just doesn't make any
And
sense.
you need when I talk about undersizing, you need the water needs contact time with the filter and the filter
Definitely.
media, and that's what's not happening because all these filtration systems are too small. We engineer manufacture big whole home systems, but we also have under the counter POU systems. And we also manufacture a very robust shower. And again, with the shower filters, you want to remove that. The big thing is removing the chlorine. And again, chlorine is relatively easy to remove, but you need a big filter so that the water has contact time. So we have the largest shower filter in the industry. It doesn't look pretty, and a lot of the wives don't like it, but
If it works, it works, eh?
it works well. So chlorine. If I could just veer off for a second.
Of course, please.
So you took let's say you took a shower this morning. So what that means is you're wearing a shell of chlorine on your skin.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when your water is not filtered. You're wearing a shell of chlorine that interacts with your organic matter in your skin, and it forms a very carcinogenic material and called chloramines. And that's what's caused all the skin cancer they're saying is from the sun is baloney. So, I mean, they're finally, even mainstream medicine is buying off on that. So skin cancer is showing up in a lot of places where the sun's never shining. And we attribute it to the massive amount of chlorine in the water. The chlorine it's a poison, interacts with your organic matter and forms this very strong carcinogen called chloramines. Yeah. So that's why you got to get chlorine out of your life. But 80% of the pollutants you're coming in contact with is from showering and bathing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. That was a very succinct breakdown, Ken. Thank you so much for that. Previously, you mentioned this idea of structured water. Obviously, a lot of folks also call it easy water. Now, I've been trying to get Dr. Gerald Pollack onto the show now for a while. I'm sure you're familiar with his work,
Oh yeah,
the fourth phase of water and all of that.
Yeah.
But for the audience and perhaps myself as well, would you mind breaking down what structured water is? It's talked about a lot, but I don't think many people understand the significance of what it really is, and then how it's and why it's required by the body for the body to function properly. And then, maybe we could just discuss how you structure water. I know you mentioned something about vortices. Again, a little outside my wheelhouse. But if we could just go down that little rabbit hole for a while, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. So water. So again, when you nano purify water to nearly distilled quality, the first thing you have to do is put the minerals back in, and that's important because the minerals are what raise the pH. And again, we believe 8.0, 8.5 is the sweet spot. But the other thing is water wants to be moving. We have this gets a little woo-woo sometimes for people, but water's alive. It's as alive as the plants and the trees. And water wants to be moving, not in straight lines. So what the biggest component of restructuring it is vortexing the water. And so we have a vortexing device in every water component system that we make. We have a very robust water vortexing device, and some of them get really large. And so what's happening is the water is spinning through that. So we add the minerals in, we vortex it, we run it through another, we're huge into UV. Everything that we do, the last step is we run it through more UV just to make sure there's nothing bad has gotten through. But the key component is actually putting the movement back into the water, and that's what the restructuring is really all about.
Okay. And does that restructuring survive transport in, say, one of your bottled products?
Is it in the water bottle?
I assume it is in the water in the
Yeah,
bottled products, but
yeah.
does that restructuring process survive transit maybe to?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, once you bring, yeah. So we bottle in glass, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Which we would never. Well, first of all, we couldn't bottle it. Water in its purest form absorbs anything it comes in contact with. I might get a little off course for you here, but
no, it's perfect.
if you think about it, one of the biggest issues is if you go to the market, all that bottled water that's on the shelf, that's all done by co-packers. And so they're basically taking a bottle of water, whose ever bottle, and they're filling it. It's sitting in, and those are all plastic. It's all plastic. So this water sitting in this plastic is because it's pure. It's literally sucking the toxins out of the plastic, and you're drinking those. You're consuming those, and we have a very astute medical board of advisors, and what a lot of the doctors are telling us is a lot of these toxins, particularly for women, breast cancer is epidemic. Particularly for women, they're storing these toxins in their breasts. And so if you think about it, by the time they bottle that water, it's in transit in a warehouse. That water's been sitting in a plastic bottle for 3 months. And just imagine it's pure water. It is pure water. It's drawing those toxins out. People don't get that. You shouldn't be, anybody you love, nobody you know should be drinking out of plastic bottled water. I've been the lone wolf for 30 years, and it's causing a lot of the issues we have today.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely an endocrine disruptor, and all the BPAs and bisphenols,
Yeah.
they all mimic these sort of estrogen metabolites in the body, and then you have these estrogen dominant cancers that can sort of take effect as a result. So no, you again, thank you for saying that. I think it's important for people.
It's a big issue, and I have 2 daughters. They're young. They're married, and they're trying to have kids. And, young women today are having problems getting pregnant. It's a big issue. Again, they're saying it's the plastic, it's the residual in plastics, and it's the guys that are having the problem because of the plastics. That's the buzz.
Yeah, so, no, definitely.
This in vitro, these young women are having
going through IVF,
$60,000. They're spending to get pregnant. And my daughter said, Dad, it's all my friends. They're all having trouble getting pregnant. When we were growing up, all we had to do was look at a girl and get her pregnant. So, but anyway, so the plastic is a problem. And I go off on tangents on that because it's such a big problem. And I don't get it. It's a convenience thing. This is why. But I see people that are pretty conscious drinking their water and then throwing that. And don't even talk about the landfills and the plastic. And
the sustainability aspect.
It's a nightmare. Yeah.
No, it definitely is. We've been fortunate enough to chat to a few environmental physicians and some detox coaches in the space, Adam Park and Dr. Jenny Goodman in the UK. And they are, you are just preaching exactly what they say. They talk about this sort of terrain theory of illness, that it's not necessarily what's going on in the body that's driving this disease, but the terrain outside of the body that is causing the body to sort of move out of the sort of homeostatic state into the sort of state of allostasis, and then you just have all of this toxic load sort of creating endocrine disruption, driving mitochondrial dysfunction. And then you wonder why not you specifically, of course, but one wonders why we then have these dearth of issues like we currently do in society. You are, of course, bang on. What do you think of cans, just out of interest? Is there any validity there as a sort of a delivery or a mechanism not a mechanism, an option to sort of canned water? Is that an option, or just from a price perspective, maybe I assume it would be cheaper than maybe glass?
Are you talking about in terms of bottling water?
Yeah, no. So I'm just thinking from the consumer's perspective. Is canning water
No, no,
an
no, no,
option?
no. Here's the problem with cans. Cans have a plastic liner in them.
Of course.
Yeah, and
Okay, so you're back to square one
it's
again.
back to square one, because if you're putting pure water in a can over time, I don't know if you probably haven't done this, but I've drinking water out of a can that's like a year old. It's horrible. You if you're bottling glass, we've had people. I had a woman call me not long ago, and she has found a case of water from COVID that we had shipped, and she says, "Is this water still good?" And I said, "Yeah, it's still good." And I said, "You know what? Send me that case back." It was 2 years old, and I said, "I'll send you a new case." We got the water back. We tested the oxygen. It had lost like 2 to 3 parts per million. That's it. It tasted terrific, and you can't beat glass. When I was growing up, I don't know if you remember Tupperware, right? Do you have Tupperware? Okay, so my mother walked in with Tupperware when I was a small kid, and we're going, "This is the coolest thing we've ever seen." So Tupperware was the beginning of the end, because everything used to be in glass. I don't know if you recall, but even frying pans and cooking pans were glass. Uh,
Oh, they definitely were, and I mean it's something I'm very cognizant of personally. I won't cook in anything that's got a PTFE sort of
no,
or
no,
covering it all. I think that's just asking for problems. And
yeah,
yes, this maybe the science isn't completely solid there, but I'd rather, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'd rather just err on the side of caution, use something like stainless steel or cast iron.
yeah,
It doesn't cost you anything,
yeah,
and it's obviously just a lot safer than sort
for
of
sure.
potentially looking at something Teflon based and
Yeah.
sort of, maybe flipping the coin.
So we got to, I don't know the answer other than we got to move back to glass. I mean, glass is expensive. It's heavy. It breaks. We did get you a case all the way over on the other side of the world, though,
You did
with
indeed,
with no
and it
broken
made it here.
no broken
No,
bottles.
it was perfect. It was definitely
So
perfect. Ken, I'd love to talk about the remineralization side of things again. Obviously, you alluded to that earlier somewhat, and and again, I think it's important to note, as you said, so many kind of companies will sell you a commercial filter or an at-home filter or something that just completely pillages the water, and you end up with these sort of molecules of hydrogen and oxygen that are bonded together, and beyond that, they're completely dead. There are no trace minerals in them. How are you with your process at Ophora remineralizing water? Are you simply just adding in sort of bags of salt and magnesium, or do you have
no.
a more
So
specific
what we
process?
discovered out of Germany years ago was I don't know if you've heard of bioceramics.
Vaguely.
Yeah, so they're really cool. So basically, they're organic. They're made out of calcium. They're bioceramic balls. Germany, they invented in Germany. The South Koreans are actually doing the best job with them now. We actually buy these bioceramics in 50-pound bags, but these bioceramics are impregnated with trace minerals, and so we have on all of our systems have a cartridge depending on the size of the system. Our big bottling, where we have our big bottling plant, we have like 6 of these 20-inch big bioceramic cartridges that the water slowly passes through, and the minerals are eroded back into the water. Um, it's organic, it's pure, and we've had really good success using these bioceramics over the years. And if you do a deep dive in them, there's bioceramics now. Just so many different types of bioceramics that are made of silver that you can do various things with. And there's actually a company out of South Korea is called BioSierra. If you want to go online and look, but they pretty much took the whole bioceramics to another level. But that's what we use to remineralize the water.
That's fascinating. I'll definitely check them out after the show. And then, just with regards to remineralisation, are you sort of focusing on those macro elements that we discussed earlier, the magnesium, the sodium, the potassium, etc., or are you sort of really looking at maybe the trace minerals as well, your zinc, your chromium, etc.? Are those included there, or is it just the higher, the electrolytes?
Yeah, more of the electrolytes. We encourage. We're all about. There's really three things: drinking water, movement, and eating clean. That's I have a dietitian on our staff, and we're promoting those. As important to water as movement. People aren't moving enough, and then eating clean. I mean, there's those are the three components to living a healthy life as far as we're concerned. And if there was ever a magic pill to make people, younger, or anti-aging pill, it would be movement, and
Yes.
and it's free. And so we're more than just water. When we're really, my big game is a healthier, getting people off all these pharmaceuticals and restoring health. And we just have to get people moving, drinking a lot of clean, fresh water with oxygen in it, and just concentrating on moving more.
Focus on the basics: light sleep, water,
Yeah,
drinking clean water, exercising,
yeah,
etc. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's a great way to look at it, and I think what most people maybe don't think about, not that they don't realize it, is that a lot of our food should be our main source of minerals, of course. So
Well,
if you're
that's
eating,
kind of where I was going.
yeah.
So you can't do better than eating clean and getting vegetables and fruit into your diet.
Yeah, no, it's so important, and I think it's interesting to know. I mean, you've been in the health space for a while now, but it's just interesting. You see all of these people have these extreme views on diet, whether it's a carnivore diet or a vegan diet, and then most of them sort of slowly come back to center, and they start to re-include meat or re-include vegetables or re-include fruit, and it's not complicated, is it? It's really just a case of following what nature has provided, eating seasonally, and leaving it at that. Anyway, Ken, something I probably should have touched on a little earlier, but this sort of idea of this idea of the hyper-oxygenated water again. I just would like to tie this up, if that's okay. How do you ensure that the water, or how does the oxygen remain super-oxygenated? I assume that it's almost sort of a fully reacted molecule in itself. Is that where the H2O2 comes into it? It's as you've well, you didn't allude to it, but I'll make the statement now. I assume it's not just a case of just pumping extra oxygen into a bottle of water as you would with a carbonated process.
Yeah, it's a very complicated. If you ever get over here, you'd be amazed at the amount of equipment. It takes a $500,000 piece of equipment to just produce our water. Um, and so I have 4 patents on it, and without getting into how we do it, um, all I'll say is it comes down to, again, water in its purest form wants to absorb anything it comes in contact with. We have what we call nitrogen scrubbers integrated in our most again, you're breathing 21% oxygen, somewhere around there. The rest of it's nitrogen. So we have in our manufacturing process, we have nitrogen scrubbers that scrub out all the nitrogen that's giving us 98% pure oxygen. But what we do with that oxygen is the key. We so if you cut a hose where the oxygen coming out and you put it in a bottle, it would just all bubble up, right? We have a process that turns those bigger bubbles into nano bubbles, which is absorbed and pulled into the water molecule. It's a complex. I'm really proud of it. Our water is a real anomaly in terms of what it is, the purity, the pH. Normally it would take a massive amount of minerals to get our water to 8.0, 8.5, and we're able to do that without. That's so one of the things you noticed, I'm sure, when you drank our water is how light it is on your tongue.
Yeah.
People. There's a lot of people who say they hate drinking water. They can actually drink our water because it's so light on the tongue.
There's just no aftertaste to it either. It just tastes like water should taste.
It's the oxygen, yeah. So, yeah, I wish I could get into more of the details of how we make it, but it's a complex process. I'm really
It's your IP, don't stress. I won't press you,
yeah,
promise.
I'm really proud of it, and our goal is to get our water's pricey. It's expensive to make the glass. We're struggling with these all the glass bottles in the world mostly come out of China. China owns the glass bottle industry, so and nothing against China, but I try and stay away from Chinese products. But it's starting to come. Glass is coming back, so we have found some glass manufacturers in the South that we're starting to buy from. We're phasing out the Chinese, but it's expensive. Glass is expensive, and but we don't see an alternative to glass. It's like I've searched. The cans don't work. And they'll go BPA free, and that's all a bunch of baloney.
They'll just replace it with another highly carcinogenic material.
So it's back to glass. We got to get back to glass.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Maybe it's an unfortunate sort of truth, but it's currently the most sort of stable sort of canister container vehicle that you can currently ship it in. So I say la vie, as they say. Ken, I'd love to maybe move on to discussing some of the health effects of oxygenated water, should we say. Now, I'm not asking you to make any claims, of course, but based on your experience in the industry and feedback from customers, what benefits does hyper-oxygenated water appear to deliver, both sort of acutely in the short term and then over a longer time horizon?
Well, the big thing it does, so, the kids call it organic Red Bull. I mean, it amps up your mitochondria. It's very energizing. And if you drank some of our water, you would have experienced that. I mean, when people first start drinking our water, they usually have problems sleeping for a while. It's very, very energizing, and it speeds up your mitochondria big time. One of the benefits of this water, which is kind of crazy, is that it slays your appetite, and people lose a lot of weight with this water. And I'm not even sure why that is. It does speed up your metabolism, which is what I mostly attribute it to. But there's some other components to it. But
yeah, if I was to speculate, and I mean, there could be a bunch of potential mechanisms there, but if you've got improved oxidative phosphorylation at the level of mitochondria as a result of having more oxygen within the cell, then presumably you will be better as an individual at utilizing fatty acids as an energy source. And then you are more likely to sort of be in a position where you can use both glucose and these fatty acids as an energy source, and then you're not necessarily just relying on glucose and those sugar spikes. So you probably, again, just speculating and off the cuff, I've not given it much thought, but I'd imagine there would be something with regards to appetite in that respect. You'd have less blood sugar swings and just more stable appetite as a result.
Big time. And I drink this water all through the day. I try and cut back a little bit as the evening comes on, but it is extremely energizing, and you get an energy spike from it. So again, it's it's organic Red Bull.
Yeah, the coffee without the after effects. Yeah, that's fascinating. Maybe a bit more of a technical question, but do you know offhand how hyper-oxygenated water, Ophora, maybe sort of compares to other methods of increasing oxygen uptake in cells, things like HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, of course, or things like exercise with oxygen, EWOT. Those are two therapies or modalities that spring to mind. Is Ophora or oxygenated water in any way comparable to those sorts of technologies? Or
Well, we have the one thing we have not talked about. So we have two modalities. There's two ways that Ophora has to absorb oxygen. One is drinking our water, of course, but the other is soaking in it.
All right.
Again, I came out of the hot tub industry. I mean, I was shipping these tubs all over the world, and so I soak in hyper-oxygenated water every day. In fact, I don't bathe or shower. I soak in. I have a hyper-oxygenated hot tub that when we market these and sell these, and yeah, so we have two soaking vessels. We use a teak wooden 6x4 hot tub. And then we also have an acrylic spa that we market. So we have two soaking vessels, but we've developed what we call a hyperoxygenation wellness platform. It's all pre-plumbed, pre-wired, and it hyperoxygenates the hot tub water, which I was told I would never be able to do because water doesn't like to be hot. I mean, we actually bottle our water near freezing, which is interesting. So we keep, I've got a hot tub here at our manufacturing plant so people can try it. But so the water is actually, we bottle our water between 40 and 50 parts per million right now. The hot tub water is 32 parts per million. But the interesting thing we discovered after some pretty sophisticated testing is you can absorb more water, more oxygen in a 20-minute soak than you can in an hour and a half in a hyperbaric chamber. So I soak every day for 45 minutes.
And is that measurable potentially, something like a pulse oximeter or maybe a sort of a transcutaneous oxygen protocol, anything like that? Are you using any?
Both.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
We've discovered, so drinking the water is super powerful, but when you combine soaking and drinking, it takes it over the top. And the wound healing, soaking in these tubs is amazing. It's astounding. I'm a big hiker. I've taken some really nasty falls. I've been in this hot tub bleeding, and it's amazing what soaking in hyperoxygenated water does for wound healing. I don't know if you've seen the pictures online. I have. It's pretty. Those photos weren't photoshopped.
No, they definitely weren't.
In fact, we've got MDs. We just had some pretty amazing MDs in here last week, and they are so excited about the modality of soaking in this water, particularly for diabetes, amputations, and things like that. So so in 20 minutes you can absorb more oxygen in our hyperoxygenated hot tub than you can in an hour and a half in a hyperbaric chamber. And I'm big into hyperbaric. I love hyperbaric. In fact, we've developed a whole modality of soaking first in our tub, then getting into the hyperbaric chamber. Because if you think about this, once you soak in our tub, your body will absorb all the oxygen it can hold in 20 minutes, and it'll last in your body for 14 hours. So what I was doing is I was soaking and then getting directly into a hot tub. Directly into the hyperbaric. And if you think about it, my body is completely loaded with oxygen, and the hyperbaric was forcing that oxygen deeper into my cells. And I'm really, really, really excited about this modality. In fact, this is my last hurrah, and I'm trying to get this soaking out to the world because there's just so many benefits to it. And
don't say last hurrah. I'm sure you have plenty of miles left in the tank. I suppose the only thing to add to that is that maybe one day we can figure out how to soak whilst in the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. But that's
hyperbaric is powerful, and particularly they're having big success with autistic kids, but the problem is trying stuff on an artistic kid in a hyperbaric. I mean, they're not comfortable.
They definitely aren't. I come from a background of working in special needs. My background's in biochem and such, and I worked in special needs schools on a medical level for years with very non-functional, low, non-verbal autistic children. And yeah, I can attest to that. They are very sort of not well. Yes, they are. They're resistant to modalities. They don't have the. It's not cognitive wherewithal, but they are so overstimulated that any excess amount of stimulation, for the want of a better word, just puts them into a sort of a sympathetic state, and then all the wheels fall off. So yeah, something like soaking in a hot tub
Yeah,
could be a
everybody
great,
loves hot tubs and
yeah,
soaking in the water. So
definitely.
it's a very comfortable kind of fun way to really amp up your oxygen. And again, we're all about oxygen. I believe so strongly that the healing modalities of oxygen are just, it's exciting, and we haven't really scratched the surface on it.
No, definitely not. Have you got any plans to publish any data from a peer going through any specific peer review
Interestingly
process?
enough, yeah, thanks for asking that question. So these two MDs, I can't mention their name yet, but these guys are heavy hitters, world renowned, and they have the ability, because of who they are. They have the ability. I've been bootstrapping this company for 15 years, so the problem with those studies is I just couldn't afford to do them. I've been
Yeah,
trying to get
millions of dollars.
universities interested. I mean, we've done what we can, and we've done some pretty amazing testing, but it really isn't worth much in the big picture. You need,
Yeah, it has to be peer reviewed.
yeah. So we're, that is a major goal of mine, and it will happen, and we're getting a lot closer to that.
That's interesting. Well, there's my offer out the window. I was going to offer to help you put together a study protocol, but anyway, sorry, I jest, of course. Um, Ken, I know we're starting to run up on time, but I have a few more questions if that's okay. And I suppose the last one is maybe talking directly about the effects of water on health, loosely held in this sense is, does hyper-oxygenated water, this may be a bit of a weird question, can it positively affect plant growth by any chance?
Can I do what? I'm sorry.
Excuse me, can it positively affect plant growth
Oh
by
my
any
God.
chance?
So that's a whole, yeah, I've got photos I could show you. So that's a whole nother thing. It's crazy what it does on agriculture. So, yeah, uh, it's amazing. I have photos I can send you. So I was going down, part of my problem is I am an inventor, and people will come up to me and go, "Can you do that?" And I go, "Yeah, I can do that." And then I'm on another tangent. So we were going down the whole ag thing for a while, because it is so powerful for ag. I mean, you can use less. First of all, you can use half the amount of water. Second of all, the microbes in the soil love the oxygen, so everything grows faster and bigger. And it's amazing what it does for ag. And if I live long enough, I'll get there. But I had to kind of set that aside because I got so excited about the soaking modality, drinking and soaking. So for me, it's all about drinking and soaking. But what this water does for agriculture is just crazy.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I suppose it's just a scaling issue at that point, trying to sort of create enough water, obviously, to utilize an ag is very different to trying to sort of keep people hydrated.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely a conversation for another day, perhaps. Cool. Ken, I think we discussed the Ophora solutions already. You've obviously got your bottled products, and then I think you mentioned a shower unit. Just sort of quickly for the listener, can you talk me through your range, just so that we can make the listener aware of the various options that you do have going?
Well, and that's so. I just hired a new CEO, and his biggest complaint is the amount of
SKUs.
we have way too many SKUs. So he's writing me every day about that. So yeah, we've got a lot of products. So basically, it's all about drinking, bathing, and showering. And being the fact that I came out of the swimming pool hot tub industry, We also have systems for pools and spas. But our basic unit starts with a shower filter. So our products. So I'm an engineering nut. I don't like things. The plumbing industry, by and large, the water industry, by and large, is kind of driven by plumbers, and the one issue that I have with plumbers is, their business model is, they install something and then they want to service it. We're exactly the opposite here. I build stuff. The products that we build, I build for a lifetime of use. I tease people and tell them you're going to be able to leave this stuff to your kids. But like, for example, we use a lot of pumps in our manufacturing processes on the systems we build. I could buy these pumps from China for $200. I buy German Grundfos pumps that cost $1,500, but they don't break. I've got Grundfos pumps out there that have been in the field for 30 years. So I'm crazy about building stuff that doesn't break. But we have a line of POU, point of use systems that we start with a shower. We have an under the counter BioRenew RO system we market, and then we have a freestanding water station, and then we have whole home systems. We actually have 5 different whole home systems we market. We have pool systems, spa systems, hyper-oxygenated hot tubs. We've got a big product line. And it's all on our website, and but we're gonna be reducing these SKUs though.
Fair enough. Now, I suppose it has to make economic sense at the end of the day too. Ken, you've been awesome, but before I let you go, I'd love to sort of just run through a quick lightning round with you, a few rapid fire questions. Nothing too fancy, of course, but it's just a great way of closing it up. Would you be good with that?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, first one. We mentioned it briefly earlier, but what do you think of hydrogen enriched water? We recently had Alex Tanava on the show, who obviously made a very compelling case for hydrogen enriched water. Excuse me. But what do you think about it?
Well, hydrogen is very unstable. It's way more unstable. It was a trick. Oxygen is as unstable as well, but hydrogen is extremely unstable. Hydrogen is in my opinion, the best way to take hydrogen, and I take it every day, is I use tablets. And the best way, by the way, we also have a sparkling water machine we manufacture, so you can have really Nano-Pure hyper-oxygenated sparkling water. But the best way to take the hydrogen is with sparkling water. And it gets and you have to drink it right away. So I'm not big into a lot of the hydrogen waters that we test. Most of them, frankly, when we test them, we've got pretty sophisticated testing equipment, have very little, in most cases, no hydrogen in them.
Yeah, the generators in particular. I'm trying to think of the specific law. It's not Hooke's law. It's a law. It's got to do with the gasket coefficient. But yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Those generators, they produce 2 or 3 ppm after a couple of uses. They really aren't that effective.
Well, no, and they're going to end up. I know where they're going to end up in landfills. I mean, nothing. I'm a big believer in hydrogen, and I do it every day. It's a huge antioxidant. It's wonderful, and the most efficient, best, inexpensive way is to take the tablets. And Dr. Marcola offers really great. They're out there. There's one manufacturer pretty much makes them all, and they're very robust and good. So I love hydrogen. I recommend tablets.
Yeah, Alex Tanava, who I mentioned earlier, is actually the inventor. You should probably have a chat with him at some time of the tablet specifically, and then he just outsources the technology to I think it's HRW, who then. Am I correct in saying this, Alex? If you're listening, I apologize. But yeah, no, he licenses the technology to the various manufacturers who then create the tablets. Okay, so another one quickly. These are never rapid fire, my apologies. Beyond just the bottle products, are your solutions available outside of the US? For our UK listeners, could they purchase maybe your whole house units, or is that sort of in development?
We have shipped we do ship worldwide. It depends on the system. but we have shipped our products all over the world, and we will get better at doing that. We're frankly right now we're actually having people are starting to get that in today's world they got to be responsible for their health. So what's interesting is when things like during COVID, our business exploded. It's interesting when there's events in the world that kind of people buy more of our water, and that's what's happening right now. We're absolutely swamped right now, and our water is not inexpensive, as you know.
No, it just speaks to the quality of your product, evidently. I mean, if what you were selling wasn't of value, then nobody would be buying it. I mean, which really leads me to my next question, which is, I suppose, more, I don't know, a sort of a philosophical question is, how do you respond to critics who generally look at hyper-oxygenated water or the water industry in general, structured water, easy water, maybe deuterium depleted water, and sort of are quick to judge it and point to it, the price tag as being unjustifiable? What would you say to those individuals?
Well, that's easy. So you can go to Starbucks and order your maca, whatever, for $8 a cup, or you can go have a cocktail for 20, and all of a sudden, all these products are inexpensive. In all fairness to all these people, even like myself, is we're just not we're not big enough yet to manufacture to really drive the cost down. I mean, there's a lot of great. I'm a huge fan of deuterium depleted water, but I think there's a place for it. I think if you're in cancer recovery, I think it's a must. It's pricey, but it's pricey because they're not mass producing it, just like I'm not mass producing it. So I want to get there, and I'll get there someday. But that deuterium water, again, if you're battling cancer, what's too expensive?
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah,
and
it's a scales of economy thing at the end of the day, isn't it? Ultimately,
people tell me, I can't afford your. Yeah, I hear it all the time. We can't afford it, and I go, I don't know. I mean, it's a matter of priorities, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
that's perfect.
We can afford what we really need.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yes, well, just about. Ken, okay. Last question then. What's next for Ophora? Is there anything on the horizon or in the pipeline that you can share with us, or is that all a bit top secret?
Well, we're working on hyperoxygenated eye drops. I have dry eyes. As you get older, our eye drops are amazing. We have a lot of work to do to get those approved, FDA approved. But we've got some pretty exciting oxygen in products. We're developing a skin care line that uses peptides along with our water. There's just so many exciting things that we're working on. And my goal is to shortly just go into I love R&D. That's what I love. I don't necessarily love running a company, but I just soon be in the lab doing stuff. But the number one thing is soaking. I want to get this soaking modality out to the world because it's so powerful.
Yeah, no, it sounds fascinating. Yeah. Ken, thank you so much for your time. If people want to purchase your water, can maybe connect with you or just the brand in general, where can they find you?
Ophora we ship worldwide. And that's true of systems and our water. Our water, again, it's not inexpensive to ship because it's heavy, but it's worth it. So just ophora and we'll be more than happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing conversation. We'll chat soon.
It's been fun. Thank you. Take care.